So before we begin this lesson, this is just an update for using .NET Core 3.0 because there is a small change in identity, or really just so that we can use one of the features of identity, which is the sign-in manager. We actually need to add an additional package into our API project. And if we don't do this, then we won't have access to the sign-in manager. So what we're going to do before we get started with this particular lesson is we're just going to go to our NuGet package manager and add a package. And what we want to look for here is ASP.NET Core.identity.ui and press return. And we want to install the Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity.ui. So let's add this one, and we want to go for the 3.0.0 version of this, and we want this to go into our API project. So let's just make sure we select this one as well, and this goes ahead and installs this, and we can restore so that this is applied to our project. And if you take a look at your API CS proj file, then this is what it should look like at this moment in time. We've got a reference here now to ASP.NET Core Identity UI. Now, the rest of the lesson continues as it was originally designed. There is a slight inconsistency because it's showing you a demo on the 2.2 version of the startup class, but the code we add is exactly the same, so I haven't re-recorded this entire lesson, but we do need this when we're using .NET Core 3.0 in order to make use of the sign-in manager, which we'll come on to very shortly. And now we'll continue with this lesson as it was originally recorded. So our next task is to configure Entity Framework Identity, and we need to go to our startup class to do this. And let's take a look at what we're going to do. So just below our services add MVC, I'm just going to add what we need in here to configure ASP.NET Identity. And first of all, we need to add Identity Core and let it know about our app user entity. And we're going to store the result of this in a variable called builder. And we're going to say services.add identity. And we have two options here. We've got add identity, which is the default identity system configuration for the specified user and role types. And we would use this one if we were creating, let's say, an MVC application where we were serving our pages from the server using the Razor library. And this sets up the user authentication using a cookie-based authentication. But we don't want to use that. We want to use the add identity core. And this just adds and configures the identity system for the specified user type. Role services are not added by default, but we can add them if we want to. And we're going to use this one and add what we need to specifically for our application. And then what we need to do is specify the user type in here. And this one's going to just specify the app user, which we'll need to bring in from the domain. So what we need to do then is create a new instance of the identity builder class. And what we'll do is we'll say var identity builder equals new identity builder, and we'll need to bring this in from ASP.NET Core Identity. And then what we need to pass in here is two parameters, the user type and also the services that we're adding here. And our user type we're going to get from builder.userType, and the services we're going to get from the builder variable as well, and say builder.services. And then with our identity builder, we just need to add two things here. We need to add identity builder, and we need to add the entity framework stores. And this creates our user stores that we need for ASP.NET Core Identity. And we also need to pass this our data context. And what we also need to add is Identity Builder, and we need to add a sign-in manager as well. And for this we need to pass in the sign-in manager type, and also the app user. And by adding this gives our application the ability to create and manage users via a user manager service, which we get from Identity Core. And we also get, or we've added, a sign-in manager. And we need this so that we can use this to sign our user in using their username and password, or email address and password. And this is all we need to do to configure identity in our application. And what we'll do next is we'll add some seed users so that we've actually got some users to work with in our application. And we'll take a look at that next.